And what could Russia do? So what will Russia do? Are we going to have a nuclear war? What is Russia going to do? The United States, one of the senior strategists who advises the government, Timothy Ash, he doesn't think Russia's going to, I think he's downplaying the nuclear option, but he says Russia will react for sure. The only question is what that will be, what Russia could do militarily. A land attack to drive a corridor through Lithuania, that's what I was talking about, would be a direct attack on Lithuania, triggering NATO Article 5. So I'm going to educate everyone what is Article 5, defense. Putin knows that's war with NATO. Can Putin afford that when he is struggling to deliver on even his own much reduced strategic objectives in Ukraine? He would also have to launch an assault through Belarus, stretching his supply lines and splitting his forces, he noted. So Timothy Ash is not saying anything about the nuclear option, but it almost seems like you get Russia pissed off in Ukraine, and then you piss off Russia over in Lithuania too. Theoretically, maybe NATO's thinking we defuse Russia's forces and then we'll secure Kaliningrad, which has essentially Russia's key military operations. All right. So either these people are very stupid or they want to start a war. It's the only conclusion a rational person could come to. All right. So again, here's another important analysis of this and why Russia-Lithuania tensions are rising. And again, it brings up the fact that historically Kaliningrad was a region that was part of Germany, was part of Eastern Prussia, and after World War II, per the Potsdam Agreement, that became part of Russia. In fact, Kaliningrad was named after Mikhail Kalinin, who was one of the Russian Bolshevik leaders. And the new tensions between Moscow and the West are rising after Lithuania, as I just shared, decided to halt those transports. And it's important to understand that Kaliningrad, as this article says, Soviet authorities developed Kaliningrad as a major ice-free port. You see, the reason Kaliningrad is important is because it's ice-free. Otherwise, Russia has to go up through its northern part, and it's a key center for fishing, encouraging people from other regions to move into the territory. But since the collapse of the Soviet Union and the independence of the Baltic regions, Kaliningrad finds itself separated from the rest of Russia, Estonia. And the other thing important to remember is Kremlin has methodically bolstered its military forces in Kaliningrad, arming them with state-of-the-art weapons, including precision-guided missiles. All right. So just to be clear, if you look at Russia, how does Russia get its goods out to the ocean? Either they have to go up north, which means they need ice cutters. Baltic is where they use Kaliningrad. It's warm. Or they go down through the Black Sea. That's why they took back Crimea, which was actually part of Russia. So when the Soviet Union fell apart in 1991, Russia agreed, and I'll get to this, agreed that they would not go west, and the U.S. agreed they would not go east. All right. This is an agreement that was made by George Herbert Walker Bush, that they wouldn't go 1 inch to the east. All right. But the reality is NATO has violated those agreements that were made with the USSR with Gorbachev when it collapsed. So Russia's saying, wait a minute, you're not keeping our agreements. We're Russia. We're not bound to what you did with USSR because you're not following those agreements. And I'll get into that. So Russia has said on June 8th, right after these sanctions were imposed and they saw Lithuania moving in this direction, the Russian parliament had one of their MPs move a bill. And he moved a bill saying that the USSR's recognition, which was the former Soviet Union's recognition of Lithuania's sovereignty on September 7th, 1991, would be null and void because it went against the Soviet constitution. And he said, we are the successors of the USSR. We have the right to annul the decisions of the Soviet Union, which are essential for us here. That was Yevgeny Fyodorov. De-recognition would also give Lithuania legal grounds for exiting NATO, Fyodorov said. So think about so Russia is being forced to make this move. So they actually have a bill in the Duma saying, you know what? So think about this. If you're a company, you had a company, and that company divested some assets with something that it had. In this case, USSR divested Lithuania, and the USSR also had Russia, which it broke off. Russia is saying, look, we have the right to take back Lithuania. And this is the discussion that's taking place in the Duma, because the Duma is saying, well, how do we overcome Article 5? We're going to take back Lithuania. And this is what is already a bill in the Duma right now, in the Russian Duma. Now, and as this article goes on to say, the Lithuanian defense minister, Arvydas Anuška, said if that occurs, then Lithuania would revoke the 1634 Treaty of Polyanovka and take back lands from Russia. So you see where this is going. You're basically lighting a fuse. So Lithuania is saying, if you don't recognize our independence, then we're going to annex lands from Russia. So this is escalating, escalating, escalating. And you have to wonder, why is Lithuania in the middle of this? It's a small Baltic state. How do they get involved in it? And it's important to remember that it is NATO, US equals NATO, that is incentivizing this. And you can see as far back as April, this article came out in April 12th, Lithuania adopts resolution calling Russia a terrorist state. And then here's another one. Lithuania's president urges Sweden and Finland to join NATO. These kinds of acts were never supposed to occur per the agreement with NATO, the United States, and the USSR in 1991. This kind of nonsense should never take place because you are literally starting World War III when you talk this kind of stuff. But they're using Lithuania to do this. A little small country who really has no power on its own, but it's backed by the United States, by the military industrial complex of the United States and Britain and a couple of other countries that donate to NATO. They are essentially using Lithuania as a proxy. And they've been doing that for a long time or in the recent months. All right. And by the way, Lithuania is profiting from this because Lithuania essentially is being subsidized by NATO, as you can see, which means it's being subsidized by the United States. You notice its defense spending was down and it's starting, its military expenditure percent of GDP is nicely growing for them. Okay. Very valuable for them.